started out competing 2008. I hit the Cutler in my first show. Got my ass whooped. I went in to make middleweights, missed it. It was a light heavyweight. Trained for a year, came back in 2009, 2010, took a couple second place finishes. So I finally get to the point where I was like, I'm going to take a couple years off, make some real legit changes. So I basically trained for 2 years up to 2012. That was going to be the time I was going to prep for the Cutler in Boston. I was going to move on to junior nationals. So
what? How old were you by then?
I was like 29.
Okay.
29. So that was 2012 that I started that prep.
So you started competing at like 25?
I started competing around 25,
yeah.
So I was about 29 now. I actually feel like I had my physique pretty legit. Like, it's pretty balanced, just trying to bring my legs up. I would have been on stage right about like 196, 198, pretty shredded. So I was coming into that prep, and I felt good. I've never had any health issues. To be honest, I never used to go to the doctor, ever. Never used to get blood work, which is completely stupid. But it was one of those things I felt good. I was young. I don't know, to be honest, I kind of didn't want to know if anything was wrong, and I kind of didn't think anything was wrong.
Right.
So I was just doing my thing, and I was about a week out from the Cutler. It was like around April. It was actually April 28th, and I was coming back from, I was in nursing school. I was coming back from class, stopped to go tanning. I went tanning, and I came out to my Jeep, and I'm sitting there eating a meal. It was just like fish and green beans, and I was pretty sick of it by then. So I started getting a stomach ache, and I was like, I'm either getting sick or I just have my stomach's messed up from all the vegetables I'm eating, or something's off.
Now, you had been competing like the whole year before this, though, right?
No, this was actually, I had taken a full year off.
Okay, so you had done the junior nationals, the Europa.
Junior nationals. I competed all of 2010. I competed 3 shows from June all the way up until November.
Okay, so you were rebooting at that point.
So I was basically rebooting. So I took all of 2011 off. I started over fresh 2012. I think I started my prep for the 2012 Cutler, which was the year that Chris Tuttle won.
Yep.
I started that like beginning of December. So I had been prepping for probably 16 weeks. Feeling pretty good, like I was on point. I was pretty excited to get to the stage. And then, like I said, that one day I went to class, went tanning, came out and ate, started getting a stomach ache, and I was going to come home and I was obviously going to come home and train. And I was just wrecked. My stomach was a disaster. It was just so much pain, and it kept escalating and escalating. And at the time, I'm like, I'm not going to go to the emergency room right now because that's going to throw off a whole day. I'm going to be stuck in there. I don't know what they're going to do to me. So I didn't go.
Yeah, you don't want to be there for 15 hours when it's nothing.
I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to pack meals. I'm like, I'm just going to stay here. It's probably something that will pass. So I woke up in the morning. I still felt sick, but I got on. I have a treadmill in my house. I got on the treadmill, did 40 minutes of cardio, sat down, and it was like getting really, really bad. So I put an ice pack on my stomach, and I remember I nodded off like a half an hour, and I woke up just completely sweating. The pain was so bad. I'm the type of person I'll put anything off unless like I'm legit gonna die before I go to the emergency room. So a friend of mine picked me up, brought me to the hospital, the emergency room, and they found out that I was bleeding internally. They're like, you're spilling massive amounts of blood. It looks like you have an artery in your liver that burst. So they took me into Boston. Long story short, I ended up in ICU. I had some huge liver tumors on my liver. The artery to one of those tumors had burst, so I was basically just spilling blood out into my abdominal cavity, and my stomach was really distended, and they said it's going to be, you're going to have to get a surgery to get the tumors cut out, but they didn't think anything of it. They thought it would just kind of like benign tumors. So they planned a surgery for like 8 weeks later. I had to recover from that, which was really painful. The bleeding was probably the worst recovery ever. So went in for a first surgery. They cut me open, like I think I showed before. I don't even know if you can see the scar, but like I get a scar from there up to here and down to there, a couple drain holes right here. So they cut me open the first time. It was like an 8-hour surgery. They cut 80% of my liver out, took my gallbladder out, sewed me back up. I was recovering from that. 6 weeks later, I went in to get the pathology results, which I don't know why it took so long, but it did. And they told me that the tumors in there were cancerous, which they'd never seen. They usually any case before there with liver tumors, they're benign. So at that point, there was a few remaining. So since these were cancerous, they had to go back and take them out. So they planned another surgery, the exact same one. It was like mid-September, so I went in, had the surgery over again, came back mid-November. They told me there was nothing else they could do. They said there's still tumors in there, we can't cut anything more out, you can't take chemo doesn't treat liver cancer. So they basically were going to put me on an oral chemo med to sustain where the tumors are at for as long as they would sustain it. They said either the tumors would start to grow and they would basically kill me, or the meds, the side effects were awful. Like it deteriorated the skin on your hands and your feet, so you couldn't walk and you'd be in a wheelchair and all this stuff. So I was like, nah, I'm all set with that. So they gave me 2 years to live. This was 2012 in the fall. So at that point, I was like, nah, if I have 2 years to live, if that's really true, I'm at least going to have some quality of life. So I started looking at natural approaches, and the first thing that came up was like raw vegetable juicing and like alkalinizing diets and the whole 9 yards. Low protein, low carb, high like keto type diets, where you have low insulin release, low sugar, low IGF levels, and basically you can
anti-bodybuilding.
Everything to do that's anti-bodybuilding. Yeah, so that's what I did. So I told him at Mass General, I said, I want 3 months to see what I can do on my own, and when I come back for an MRI, if they're getting worse, I'll do your way.
Do everything you want.
But I want my way first. I need to prove it to myself before I ever do your way. So I basically went into it like full force, and I was fasting like
probably the most serious prep you ever did.
Yeah, well, actually, I came out of surgery and I started this in like November, and the weird thing was, like, in the back of my mind, I never said anything to anybody. I actually had in my mind in November, even though I thought I had 2 years to live, that I was going to do the Cutler in May. I felt like if there's anything I'm going to do, it's going to be to get my body back in shape, to get healthy, but with this kind of lingering is like an ultimate goal. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I just knew I was going to go towards it.
That's insanity.
So,
like, you just say that, and it's like, most people are like, they're just thinking about how they can exist normally, you know what I mean?
Well, the way that I looked at it was, there was like I was telling you earlier, when someone tells you have 2 years to live, first off, I feel like you try to get your priorities straight, like what means the most to you. So the biggest thing for me is that I didn't want to feel defeated. I didn't want to feel like I was less capable than I was before this happened. So I didn't want my daily routine to change. I didn't want my body to change too much. I didn't want anything that I did before to change. I still wanted to diet the same way. I wanted to train the same way. And even if I ended up 50% of what I used to be on stage, I still wanted to get to that point. You know, obviously I took a much healthier approach. I was doing still like the whole juicing through it, hardly any supplements. I kept the whole cancer battle in mind, and then I also had the goal of getting on stage in mind. So as I closed in on it, I started making pretty good results. My training picked up. The incision was a big deal for a while in my stomach, because it was really hard to train. I used to have to wrap it with like 3 like neoprene wraps, wear a belt up high on my waist, and I had to make sure I didn't use much core. So I closed in on March. I had an MRI and a visit, and I was like, if I do that visit in March and everything turns out good, I'm gonna push the threshold for the next like 7 weeks.
Your doctors even know you were doing this?
They didn't know I was doing any of it.
Because they would have been like, what are you doing?
I didn't tell them anything. They asked me if I still bodybuild, and I'm like, nah, I just do a little cardio and lift a little weights.
Yeah.
So then March 5th, the scans turned out good. I decided to do the Cutler. The prep was a bitch, really. I mean, I get down to the end, I was doing like I was doing an hour of fasted cardio, and then I was doing an hour of upper body cardio. I was doing like CrossFit style stuff, because I didn't want to do too much cardio to shrink my legs up. So I was doing like those warrior ropes. I was doing like jump rope. I was doing medicine ball off a trampoline, anything just to get my heart rate up. And I was basically eating like 6 meals a day of haddock and greens, and they were like blended greens in my juicer. Every 4 days I do like a high carb couple meals before legs, and so I rolled into that prep. I came into the Cutler. I won the open middleweight class that year, that was awesome for me. That was a huge accomplishment. And then following that show, I thought I was in the clear. Like, my liver was looking good. My blood work showed my white blood cell count started raising. It just kept going up and up. It was to the point it was like 8 times the normal amount. So they tested me for leukemia and found out that I had a mild form of leukemia. It's not like a real aggressive form, but it definitely was something legit. So this was in the fall, October, November of this past 2013, which is recently. So I started taking oral chemo meds at the time, and so far, I mean,
you had an interesting experience with that, because you were having a lot of pain without the meds.
Yeah, for me, it's actually been like it's been a good thing. It's actually been like I guess a blessing, because for like 3 years I had really, really bad back pain. Just overall, like, I guess now it's skeletal pain, but I didn't know. I thought it was injuries from training. It started about like 3 years ago, actually, around 2010. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was injuries. So I was doing 2 90-minute sessions of deep tissue a week. I would do 2 foam rolling sessions a day, probably 30 minutes apiece. I was stretching. I had ultrasound machines, electrostim. I have an inversion table. I'd spend my whole day doing recovery, just so I could walk normal. I couldn't run. If I sat down for 45 minutes, it would take me like 10 minutes to straighten up. It was legit. It was bad. So I've had MRIs. They were like, oh, you're fine. You got like a little disc bulge, but nothing that should be causing you that much pain. So ironically, when I started the chemo meds, I was kind of monitoring how I felt, thinking I was going to get worse, and I had a little bit of side effects from the meds, but as far as my overall
everyone tells you you're going to be super tired, but
everybody was like, oh, you're going to be tired, you're going to be, they just wait, it's really going to get to you. And I was like, nah, fuck that, man. I honestly, like, if I'm taking something to kill leukemia, I should be feeling better. And even if I'm delusional for thinking that, that's just like where my mind is at. That's what I want to believe, and that's what I'm going to believe. So, leukemia is a cancer of the bone marrow, so when cancer starts, it's basically inflamed bone marrow tissue, so I had bone pain. So that's why all the soft tissue work I did with massage and all that did nothing for me, because it was basically in my bones. There was a skeletal system. So now that that's gone, I have some pretty good traction, and it's like I feel like I'm like 20 years old again. It's crazy. Like we just
because you've basically been dealing with this for years and had no idea.
Yeah, it's tripled. I have all recliners, power recliners in my house. I have an adjustable power bed because I couldn't sleep on a flat bed. I would have to like prop the thing up in like a U shape to decompress my back, and now I'm fine. Now I can run, I could train legs, I could go for a run. I wouldn't want to, but I could. Like just
I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, no, fuck that. But I feel great. So I mean, the whole thing, like you were asking me the mental approach on it before with the cancer, and like the way.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen you. I mean, you've got to have weaker mental, emotional moments.
Yeah. I mean,
but I've never seen it.
No, I mean, the thing is, it's like everybody does. Everybody has weak moments, but it's really just how you act on it. And the fact that I have cancer and they give me 2 years to live, like the way that I looked at it was like, there's nothing I can do about that. So if I have 2 years, I'm gonna live it. Like I'm gonna do the damn thing, and I'm gonna live those last 2 years. If there's any benefit that comes from it, is that I don't have to plan for the future. So I'm twisted in the way that I look at it, but it's what works for me. I just figured that I'm going to live harder for 2 years, and that's what's going to happen. So luckily, I'm not in that situation anymore, and things are solid. My liver's solid; it's regrown. My leukemia is just about in a like a dormant state.
So you have what, like a year and a half left of treatment?
I don't know. It depends. I'm like way ahead of the curve on it right now, so I don't know if I'll be able to stop it sooner or not, but I'm basically...
But that's what they planned.
Yeah, basically the leukemia, the last time I went 6 weeks ago, was 96% gone.
No shit.
So by now, I have an appointment on Friday. So by now...
You should start a cancer beating business, coaching.
The thing is I have. It's funny with my nutrition business.
How do you teach somebody how to be that positive?
The thing is, though, that's absolutely amazing is I remember when I first started getting into my nutrition business and all that, I'm like, I'm going to take the approach on like health and greens nutrition. People who are sick, those are the people who are going to need to do this stuff, and that's the market that I want to appeal to. Even though I love bodybuilding and I love nutrition, like performance nutrition, but those are the same people that were like, yeah, they gave me like 5 months to live, and I need help. So I'd show them what they need to do, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I can't do that.
It's amazing, right?
And they're like, oh, I can't afford that. Like maybe at my next check, and I'm like,
you need to do this.
You have 5 months to live. You can't. This person's doing it because they want to lose 10 pounds of fat. You're doing it to save your life, but you still can't do it. So I just can't. I can't deal with that. I love to help somebody, but I always feel like every time I try to help somebody when it comes to health related in the general public, they just don't want to do what's necessary, and there's nothing you can do for that. I always say it's like driving a remote control car, and you have the most badass remote control car, but the control is broken. So like, it doesn't matter what input you give it, the thing's just it's gonna do what it's gonna do. So when you help someone, you can't do it for them. They have to do it. You can set up the best plan, you can give them everything they need to know, but they have to get up every damn day and do it.
So what's next? Are you gonna target a competition, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking about it this year, and I started prepping back in December, and I figured the worst case scenario was I'd end up leaner in the summer. But yeah, I kind of was going, doing the leukemia thing, and I feel fine, and my blood work's good and everything. I just don't really feel like mixing. I didn't really feel like pushing it too hard with the leukemia battle. Also, at the same time, I want to bring up certain body parts. Next time I compete, I want to be a different bodybuilder. I don't want to show up on stage looking like, I kind of look a little different, but not really. Like, I want to show up, and I want it to be known. Like, yeah, that's the work you put in. Otherwise,
you can't really do the things that all the bodybuilders do.
Exactly.
In order to make massive gains.
Well, supplement-wise, yeah, I can't. So my progress is definitely way slower. And the way that I look at it is I don't have a ton of competitions left to do. I'm not going to keep competing. I'm staying on the coach end side of it. So when I go to do, if I have 1 or 2 more shows left in me, I want to make those shows, I want to make them count. So I want to show up on stage when I've made some serious progress. So right now, I'm probably looking at like next May, maybe qualify at the Cutler and then go on to like a Junior USA or Junior National show.
You're going to be a light heavy?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe sneak into a middleweight. Maybe a light heavyweight at a local show and middleweight for a...
Don't be trying to beat me.
We'll see what happens.